I never thought I'd be in this situation. I came home early from a business trip, expecting to surprise my wife, but instead, I walked in on her in bed with a man from her office. I stood there frozen, completely stunned. My heart sank, and my mind raced to comprehend what I was seeing. It took me a few seconds, but when she realized I was there, she didn't even try to hide it. There was no scrambling, no panic. She just sighed and looked at me like I had walked in at the wrong time. The man scrambled to get dressed, muttering a quick goodbye as he left the room, without saying a word. I still couldn't process what had just happened. I finally managed to choke out the words. What the hell is going on? That's when she dropped the bombshell. We've been having an affair for 6 months, she said, almost matter-of-factly. But then, just when I thought I couldn't be any more shocked, she added something I didn't see coming. I was just taking matters into my own hands to get pregnant because you have a low sperm count. I couldn't believe it. She was justifying the affair, telling me it was a solution to our fertility struggles. The more she talked, the more I realized how deeply she had deceived me. All I could do was stand there, not knowing how to respond, my mind still reeling. There was no anger at first, no outburst. Just numbness. It was too much to take in. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I simply turned around, grabbed a few things, and walked out. I didn't even say goodbye. I stayed with a friend that night. The next week, I filed for divorce. The whole situation felt like a bad dream, and I wasn't sure how to wake up from it. My wife kept calling, texting, apologizing, and at times, trying to convince me I was overreacting. One minute she begged me to come back, and the next, she was justifying her actions. Both wanted kids, she said. This was just a practical solution. If I'm not pregnant, we can still work things out, right? I couldn't wrap my head around it. The divorce was finalized quickly, in about 3 months. We split things evenly, sold our house, and went our separate ways. I moved to a new city, trying to start fresh. But in the back of my mind, the whole thing lingered. The betrayal, the lies, and the fact that the woman I had loved for so long could do this to me. It didn't feel real. The days that followed were a blur. I didn't want to face it, but I had to. I had to start putting my life back together. The divorce papers had already been filed, and all I could do was move forward. Though every part of me wanted to retreat into the comfort of my old life. I stayed with a friend for a few days after walking out, trying to clear my head. The house felt like a ghost town without her, like everything we had built together was now nothing more than dust and broken dreams. I didn't know what to feel, let alone what to do next. Anger, grief, confusion, they all blurred together. There were moments when the weight of it all would hit me, and I would sit in silence, staring out at nothing, wondering how I ended up here. It wasn't long before the calls started. At first, it was just 1 or 2, but then they came in waves. She apologized, she begged, she pleaded. She swore she was sorry for what she had done, but then, just as quickly, the tone would shift. She'd say I was overreacting, that this was all just a misunderstanding, that we could work it out if I was willing to try. I didn't answer most of the calls. I couldn't. I didn't want to hear it. Each message felt like a punch to the gut. But as the days passed, I couldn't help but listen to her voice, the same one I had loved for so long, breaking down into something almost unrecognizable. We both wanted kids, she would say. This was just a practical solution. If I'm not pregnant, we can still work things out. Right? She had the audacity to suggest that, if she wasn't pregnant, we could pick up where we left off. As if the affair, the lies, the years of betrayal could be swept away by her desperate words. It was like she was trying to rewrite our history, to make it sound like I had somehow failed her. When in reality, it was her who had failed us. The divorce was finalized in about 3 months. I didn't fight for assets, didn't care about the house, or the money, or the things we had accumulated together. I just wanted out. I wanted a clean break. The settlement was fair, and we went our separate ways. She kept calling, though. Texting. Her messages were a twisted mixture of regret and justification. Sometimes she would apologize for hurting me, telling me how much she regretted everything. Other times, she would claim that I was the one who misunderstood everything, that I was the one overreacting. I moved to a new city. It was 2 hours away, a place where I could start fresh. I rented a small apartment, far away from everything I had known. I wanted to disappear, to leave my old life behind. But no matter how far I went, no matter how much I tried to escape, the weight of what had happened followed me. It lingered in every quiet moment. The shock of her betrayal, the disbelief that this was really my life now, kept me awake at night. I tried to focus on my work, on my new surroundings. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, saw the look of indifference in her eyes when she had told me about the affair. It wasn't the anger I expected. It was the emptiness that crushed me. She had been so cold, so calculating, and I had been so blind. I wanted to heal. I wanted to move forward. But every call, every text, every reminder of what had happened chipped away at the walls I had built around myself. I couldn't outrun it. I had to face it. And deep down, I knew I was only running from myself. 2 months after the divorce, I received a call from her. My ex-wife. At first, I thought it might be another one of those long, drawn-out attempts to guilt me into coming back. I was tired of it, but I answered anyway. "Bryan," she said, her voice softer than usual. "I have something to tell you." I could already hear the desperation in her voice, the kind that had become all too familiar over the past few months. "I'm pregnant." I didn't know what to say, for a moment. I just stood there, feeling the familiar pit form in my stomach. I knew what was coming next. "I'm having twins," she continued, "and they're yours." She paused, as if waiting for me to say something. "Bryan, I need you to come back. They need a father. You wanted children too, and now you have a chance to be a father to them." I felt my hands tighten around the phone. The anger that I had buried deep inside, the anger that had been simmering since the day I walked in on her and Daniel, boiled to the surface. I could barely hold it in. "You've got to be kidding me," I said, my voice shaking. After everything you did, you think I'm just going to come back and pretend like this never happened?" She kept talking, her words tumbling over each other, trying to explain herself. "I know what I did was wrong, but this is about the kids, Bryan. Please, just think about it. They need a father, and we can work it out. We can be a family again." The words hit me like a slap to the face. She wasn't even acknowledging the years of betrayal, the lies, the affair. No, this was about the kids now. About getting what she wanted, no matter the cost. "I don't care," I said, my voice cold. "You made your choices. I made mine. I'm done." I didn't wait for her to respond. I hung up before she could say anything more. The nerve of her. She really thought that just because she was pregnant, I would throw away everything I had worked for, everything I had fought for. She thought she could fix everything with a baby, as if that would somehow erase the years of lies and deceit. But it wasn't that simple. Not for me. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. The weight of it all pressed down on me again. This wasn't just about the betrayal anymore. It was about the life I had built, the life I was trying to rebuild. And no matter how much she begged, or how many times she called, I knew deep down that there was no going back. I didn't answer her calls after that. I couldn't. Every time my phone rang, I saw her name, and I felt my chest tighten. I knew what she was doing. trying to guilt me, trying to force me into a role I wasn't ready for. I wasn't that man anymore. But still, the questions lingered. What if this was the right thing to do? What if I could be a father to those kids? I pushed the thought away, refusing to entertain it. I had made my peace with what had happened, and no amount of guilt could change that. The next few weeks were quiet, and I focused on my life in the new city. I didn't let her drag me back in. I kept moving forward, day by day. But there were times, late at night when I was alone in my apartment, that I couldn't but wonder what would have happened if I had stayed. Would I have been a good father? Could I have moved past it all for the sake of the children? But I knew deep down, I couldn't do it. I had to let go of her, of everything. It was the only way I could move on. The months passed, and the noise of my ex-wife's messages faded into the background, buried beneath the daily routine I had built for myself. I tried not to think about it, but there were moments when the weight of everything would creep up on me. Late at night, when I was lying in bed in the quiet of my new apartment, I would feel it, the echo of my old life. The betrayal, the lies, everything that had happened. But I kept moving forward. I had no choice. I poured myself into work. It was easy, almost comforting. I could lose myself in the calculations, in the design work, in the problems that needed solving. The work didn't judge me. It didn't ask questions. It just needed me to focus. It gave me something to hold on to, something stable in a world that felt anything but. Then one day, out of nowhere, I got another call. This time, it wasn't her. It was my lawyer. "Bryan, I've got some news for you," he said, his tone steady but serious. I felt my heart skip a beat. I had tried to block everything out to forget, but this was a reminder that nothing was ever truly finished. "What is it?" I asked, my voice tight. I had a bad feeling. "It's about the twins," he said. "They're trying to reach out to you. They believe you're their father." I felt like I had been hit with a ton of bricks. My mind raced back to the moment when my ex-wife had told me she was pregnant with twins. I had refused to be a part of their lives. But now, years later, they were reaching out. The memory of that phone call, the anger I had felt, the sense of finality, it all came rushing back. I didn't know how to respond. I hadn't thought about them in years, hadn't allowed myself to. They were a part of my past, something I had buried deep inside. But now, they were old enough to understand the truth, and they were asking for me. I didn't know if I was ready for this. How could I be? The years of silence between us felt like an insurmountable wall. I couldn't just walk back into their lives after everything that had happened. And yet, they deserved the truth. I told my lawyer I needed time. I couldn't make any decisions right then. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, not knowing what to do. The thought of them, those kids who had grown up with the lie, that I was their father, haunted me. I could feel the weight of that lie pressing down on me, suffocating me. I had tried to let go of the past, but it seemed the past wasn't done with me yet. The next few days were filled with more messages, more calls. My ex was trying to reach me again, too. She wasn't giving up. But this time it wasn't just about her. It was about the twins, the children she had raised on a lie. They had been living with a fantasy, and I was the man at the center of it. The father they thought they had, the father I was never meant to be. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to face it, but I was terrified. What would I even say to them? How could I explain everything? And even if I did, was it too late? The truth was, I didn't know if I could ever be a part of their lives. I didn't know if I could make peace with my past, with the woman who had lied to them, and to me. But I knew one thing, they deserved to know the truth. I owed them that much. I took a deep breath, staring out the window of my apartment. It was time to face the past, whether I was ready or not. It had been a few days since my lawyer called. I had barely slept, barely eaten. The weight of what was happening felt too heavy to process. The twins had reached out. My mind kept playing the same question over and over. What did I owe them? How could I make sense of all the years I'd spent away from them? Living my life, while they lived with a lie. I finally decided to respond. I needed to do it. Part of me knew it was the right thing. But part of me still couldn't shake the fear, the doubt. The truth was, I didn't want to face them. I didn't want to step back into that world. Especially not now, when I had tried so hard to leave it all behind. But if they wanted answers, I had to give them that. I picked up the phone and dialed their number. It rang 3 times before one of them picked up. My heart pounded in my chest. Hello? The voice on the other end sounded uncertain, tentative, but there was a familiarity to it that took me off guard. I said, clearing my throat. My voice felt thick, almost foreign to me. This is Bryan. There was a long pause. The voice hesitated, then a second voice joined in. It was clearer now. They both sounded so young, so different from the last time I saw them. They were almost adults now. Is this really you? One of them asked, disbelief creeping into their words. I nodded, even though they couldn't see me. Yeah, it's me. There was a silence on the other end, heavy and thick. I could tell they didn't know what to say next. You're not our father. The second voice finally spoke. It wasn't angry. It wasn't accusing. It was just confused. Our mom told us you were. For all these years, we thought. I know, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I know she told you that. But it's not true. I'm not your father. Another silence fell. I could hear them both breathing, trying to digest the words they were hearing. But if you're not our father, then who is? One of them asked. There was so much hurt in their voice. Your real father. I hesitated. How do you even begin to explain something like this? Your real father is someone else. Someone who didn't know about you. I could feel the weight of the words as I said them, knowing how much they must have hurt. He's someone your mom didn't tell the truth to. They were quiet for a long time, and I could hear the muffled sound of voices in the background. I knew they were talking to each other, trying to make sense of what I had just said. We need to talk to her, one of them said after a moment. Why need to ask her why she lied to us? I could almost hear their confusion and anger boiling beneath the surface. You deserve the truth, I said, my voice softer now. You deserve to know what really happened. I don't know if we want to talk to her, the other voice said. She's the one who kept us in the dark. I didn't know how to answer that. How could I justify any of it? I couldn't. I wasn't there when they needed me. I wasn't there for them when they were growing up. And now here. And were asking me questions I wasn't sure I had the answers to. I'm sorry, I said finally. I'm sorry for everything. It felt empty, that apology, like it could never be enough. But it was all I had to give. We need some time, the first voice said. We have a lot to figure out. I understand, I said, feeling my chest tighten. Take your time. If you ever need anything, I'm here. I won't be going anywhere. The line went quiet again, and for a moment, I thought they might hang up, but then one of them spoke again, a bit softer this time. Thanks, they said, before the call ended. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone in my hand. My heart was racing, my mind spinning. I had just opened a door. I didn't know if I could walk through. The truth had come out. But now what? What was I supposed to do with this new reality? I had told them the truth, but it felt like a hollow victory. The twins had heard the facts, but I couldn't help feeling like I'd failed them. I wasn't there when they needed a father. I wasn't there to help guide them. through the confusion of their mother's lies. All I could do now was hope that somehow they could find their way forward, even if that meant distancing themselves from me. In the silence that followed, I realized there was nothing I could do to change the past. All I could do was wait for them to decide how they wanted to move forward. The ball was in their court now, and it felt like the hardest thing I'd ever had to face. Days passed, and I kept thinking about the conversation with the twins. I wasn't sure how they were processing everything, but I knew I had opened a door that couldn't be closed. Part of me hoped they would find peace with the truth, but another part of me feared the damage had already been done. The lies, the years of deception, could they really move past it all? And could I? It didn't take long for things to take an unexpected turn. A few weeks after the call, I got a message from my lawyer. The twins were moving forward with a lawsuit. They were suing their mother for emotional distress, fraud, and a range of other charges tied to the lies she had told them about their paternity. I felt a mix of relief and guilt. Relief because I knew they deserved justice, and guilt because it meant the past wasn't staying buried. It meant they were confronting everything. And so was I. I didn't know how to feel about being dragged back into this, but I also knew that, at the very least, I had to help them. They were innocent in all of this. They didn't deserve the lies, the manipulation, the years of being kept in the dark. They needed someone to stand up for them. My lawyer suggested that I provide testimony, and the thought of it made my stomach turn. I hadn't thought about appearing in court, hadn't considered the emotional toll it would take on me, on my family. I couldn't risk disrupting the life I had now, my wife, our children. But I couldn't abandon them either. I didn't want to, not after everything they'd been through. I talked it over with Jessica, who had been there for me from the beginning. She listened, as always, and after a long silence, she said, "Bryan, they're asking for help. You can't keep running from this. They need you. They need the truth." I thought about her words long after she left. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I didn't do something, I would regret it. I had already failed them once by staying silent for so long. Could I live with myself if I turned my back on them now? The next day, I called my lawyer. "I'll do it," I said. "I'll testify, but I want to make it clear I can't be a part of this more than I have to. I'm not going to court unless it's absolutely necessary." The lawyer agreed, understanding my position. But I could tell, even in his voice, that he thought I was doing the right thing. The twins needed closure. They needed to hear the truth, no matter how painful. I couldn't deny them that. Soon after, I received another message from the twins. This time, it wasn't through my lawyer. They had reached out to me directly, asking if I would come to see them in person. I felt my heart skip a beat. I hadn't seen them in years, and now, they were asking to meet me. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to say, what I was supposed to do. I agreed, though. I knew I had to. It was time to face them, time to see how they were really doing. They had already gone through so much. And I had to be there, even if it meant confronting the past again. When the day came, I wasn't sure what to expect. I met them at a coffee shop, a neutral place, but it felt anything but neutral. As soon as I saw them, standing there with uncertain expressions on their faces, it was like I was looking at strangers. They weren't the kids I remembered. They were young adults now, with lives and stories of their own. I felt both pride and a strange sense of guilt watching them. "Bryan," one of them said, their voice shaky. "Yeah," I answered, stepping closer. "It's me." They both looked at me, as if trying to figure out if they could trust me. I couldn't blame them. I hadn't been a part of their lives. I hadn't been there when they needed me the most. The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of unspoken words. Then, one of them spoke, their voice trembling slightly. "We don't know what to say. Everything's been a lie, and now it feels like we're just starting over." "I know," I said softly, my own voice thick with emotion. "I can't change what happened. But I'm here now, and I want to help you find the truth. I'm sorry it took so long." The twins were quiet, digesting my words. There was a long pause before the other spoke up. "We're trying to process it. All of it. It's a lot to take in." I nodded. "I understand. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." It wasn't much, but it was a start. I had stepped into their lives again, and this time, I wasn't running away. But, as I looked at them, I knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, not for them, and not for me. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was doing something right. I knew there were many steps left to take, but today, in this small coffee shop, I had made the first one. And that somehow felt like progress. It had been a few weeks since I met the twins. Our conversation had gone better than I expected, but I couldn't shake the feeling that things weren't fully settled. The weight of the truth was still fresh for them, and I knew it would take time to process everything. But as I walked away from that coffee shop, something inside me felt different. It was as though I had taken a step towards healing, not just for them, but for myself too. I had tried to move on from the past, but there were moments when I'd find myself drifting back to the days when I was married. When I thought my life was set. Everything felt so certain then, but now, nothing was. Not even the future. I'd spent so many years trying to avoid dealing with the fallout of my ex. Wife's betrayal that it was hard to accept that the past wasn't something I could simply erase. Then one night, everything seemed to spiral out of control. I received a call from my lawyer, his voice sharp and filled with concern. "Bryan, we need to talk. Your ex has escalated things." "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "She showed up at your place. She's refusing to stay away. I think you need to take action before things get worse." I was speechless. My ex-wife had already caused enough chaos in my life, but now she was showing up at my home, uninvited. It was like she couldn't accept that I had moved on, that my life was no longer hers to control. I didn't even hesitate. I called the police, asking them to handle the situation. I couldn't let her back in, couldn't let her disrupt the life I had now, not after everything she had done. My wife and kids were home, and the last thing I needed was for them to get caught up in her mess. By the time I got home, the police had already arrived. My ex-wife had been escorted off the property, and there was a warning issued. It was over, for now. But I knew this wasn't the last time I'd hear from her. Later that night, I sat down with my wife, trying to make sense of everything. She was upset, of course. She had every right to be. But she was also calm, supportive in a way that I didn't expect. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "She can't keep doing this. You have to protect us, Bryan." "I know," I said, feeling the weight of it all. "I just don't know what her next move is going to be. It feels like she won't ever stop trying to make my life miserable." "It's not your fault," she said. "You're not responsible for her actions. But you are responsible for us." I let her words sink in. I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I had a family now, people who depended on me. And no matter how much my ex tried to drag me back into her web, I couldn't let her do that. The next few days were eerily quiet. There were no more calls, no more texts. My ex had gone silent, and part of me wondered if it was finally over. But then I got another message. This time, it wasn't from her. It was from the twins. They said they wanted to meet again, to talk some more. They had questions, more questions about their mother, about everything they had learned. I didn't know what they expected from me. I didn't know what they wanted me to say. I called them back, setting up another meeting. I had no idea where this would lead, but I couldn't keep avoiding them. They deserved to know the truth. And if that meant walking through the mess of it all again, then I would do it. I sat in the same coffee shop, waiting for them to arrive. When they walked in, I couldn't help but notice how much they had changed since our last meeting. They were older now, almost adults, but there was something about their eyes that reminded me of the children I had never gotten to know. The children I had never been there for. They sat down across from me, and we exchanged quiet greetings. The silence between us felt heavier this time. The questions that hung in the air were unspoken, but we all knew they were there. One of them spoke first, their voice steady, but tinged with uncertainty. We've been talking, trying to make sense of all this. And we have a lot of questions about Mom, about everything she said. I nodded, bracing myself. What do you want to know? We need to know the truth. They said, their voice firm now. We need to understand why she lied to us for so long. I felt a pang of guilt. I had lived with that lie for years, too. But now, they were facing it head on. They had a right to the truth. I don't have all the answers, I said, my voice quiet. But I can tell you everything I know. The conversation was long and difficult, full of painful revelations. I could see the hurt in their eyes, the betrayal they felt, and I knew it was something I could never fix. Not for them, not for me. But at least now, we were all facing it together. And for the first time, I felt like I was doing the right thing. I wasn't hiding from the truth anymore. And neither were they. The meeting ended with more silence, but this time, it wasn't as heavy. There was a kind of understanding between us. Maybe not forgiveness, not yet, but an acknowledgement that we were all trying to move forward. We all had a long way to go, but this was a start. As I left the coffee shop, I felt a sense of finality settling in. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I wasn't walking it alone. The weeks after, our last meeting passed in a blur. The twins had moved in with their biological father, and while they tried to adjust to their new lives, the past continued to linger. For a while, things seemed quieter. There was less drama, fewer calls, and I started to feel like maybe, just maybe, things were finally settling down. My lawyer kept me updated on the lawsuit. The twins were pushing forward, and I had agreed to provide a written statement that would support their case. I had no intentions of going to court, but I knew that my testimony was crucial in their pursuit of justice. As much as I hated being dragged back into it all, I couldn't turn my back on them. They had been through so much already, and I had already failed them. Once, I wasn't about to fail them again. The twins were doing better. They were seeing a therapist, and the communication between us had become more consistent. Each message, each conversation, was a reminder that we were making progress, even if it felt slow. It was clear they still had a lot to process, but they were trying. And that was all I could ask for. One evening, after a long day of work, I received a call from their biological father. The last time we had spoken, it was about the DNA test and the truth coming out. He had been hesitant to step into their lives at first, but now, it seemed like he was more certain. He wanted to make things right, and he was trying his best to be there for the twins. I wanted to let you know that I'm doing everything I can to support them, he said when I answered. I'm paying for their college education, and I'm trying to build a relationship with them, even if it's complicated. I didn't know what to say at first. I had spent so many years carrying the weight of this situation, and knowing that he was stepping, it felt like a burden was being lifted off my shoulders. The twins deserved to know the truth, but they also deserve someone who would fight for them. Someone who would stand by them. That's good, I said, feeling a mixture of relief and guilt. I think they need that. They need someone who's there for them. We talked for a few more minutes, and I hung up feeling lighter, somehow. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was necessary. The twins had a chance at a new beginning with him, and that gave me hope. I couldn't change the past, but maybe, just maybe, they could build something better. Things took another turn when I received a call from my ex. I hadn't heard from her in weeks, and honestly, I wasn't prepared for what she was about to say. I need to talk to you, she said, her voice shaky. I've been thinking about everything, and I realize how much damage I've done. To you, to the twins, to everyone. I don't know how to fix it, but I'm trying. I didn't know how to respond. After everything, after all the years of manipulation and lies, I wasn't sure I could believe her. But there was something in her voice, something that sounded like regret, that made me hesitate. I don't know what you want from me, I said finally. But whatever you're doing now, it's too little, too late. I understand that, she said quietly. But I'm asking you, for the sake of the kids, please help them find some peace. I was quiet for a long time. It was hard to separate the past from the present, hard to let go of all the anger I still felt. But for the twins, for their sake, I had to find a way to move forward. I wasn't going to forget what had happened, but I wasn't going to let it control me anymore. I've already done what I can, I said. I'm not going to be involved in this anymore. The kids need to make their own decisions, and I'm not going to keep getting dragged back into it. There was a long pause on the other end, and then she said, I get it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry for everything. I ended the call, feeling a strange mix of closure and uncertainty. It was over, in a way. I had done what I could, and now it was up to the twins to decide how to move forward. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. I wasn't going to let her pull me into her mess. I spent the next few weeks focusing on my own family. My wife was a rock through all of this, and I knew I needed to prioritize her and our children. We were planning a vacation for spring break, somewhere completely unrelated to all this drama, and the idea of just getting away, of being with the people I loved without the weight of everything hanging over me was a relief. As the weeks passed, I started to feel like I was finally healing. The past wasn't something I could change, but I had the power to shape the future. I could choose to live in the present, to be there for the family I had now, and let go of the past that had haunted me for so long. The twins continued to reach out, sending updates about their lives and their new relationship with their biological father. They thanked me for helping them find the truth. And though it wasn't easy, I knew it was the right thing to do. They deserved to know who they were, where they came from, and who their real father was. In the end, it wasn't about forgiveness or forgetting. It was about moving forward. For me, for the twins, for everyone. The past had shaped us, but it didn't have to define us. We could still find peace. We could still find our own paths, no matter how messy the journey had been. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. It was ours to shape,